Hello Frenzy, my name is Kate Shark, and today's a little different for a couple of reasons. The reason today is different is because you may have seen on my channel before I've been talking about the fact that I wrote a new book called The Calling, and I was really hoping to save this until I actually had the cover art, but I'll probably do another one where I talk about the cover art later. But I have seen the first draft, I guess, so to speak, of the cover art, and I'm so excited to see. I'm so excited for everyone to see it. I'm excited to show it off. It is absolutely amazing. I can't wait till I get to see the color and everything once it's all said, done, and completed. I can't. I honest to God, I can't stop looking at it. But The Calling is done. I'm pretty much just putting in some final things here and there, just some minor edits here and there. It is available for pre-order now. I'm going to put a link to the pre-order in the description box below. It's only the ebook that's available for pre-order because I do it through self-publishing on Amazon, and for some reason they don't allow you to do it with a paperback book or anything like that. It's only through the ebook that they allow pre-order on. I'm very excited about that. Definitely go out and check it out in the link in the description box below. Have a look at it. See, I don't know if it gives you the preview for it or anything yet, but I'm very excited about it, and I wanted to promote it today by reading the first chapter of it. So that's what I'm going to do. And before I do that, I want to take a second. And I really wanted to work hard to make sure this video got out today, and that is because we, as a community, as an Earper, if you couldn't tell, as an Earper, the fans of the show right now are trying very hard to keep up the Fight for Wynonna campaign. Hashtag, is that how you do it? Hashtag Fight for Wynonna. And it's all over Twitter. It's going crazy. And in an effort to help, I designed a t-shirt, and it's available on Shirt Punch now. I don't know if I'm going to put it back behind here or if I'll do a flash. I might put the design up behind me on my green screen here and see if you like it. If you do like it, I'll put a link to that also in the description box below so you guys can check it out and have a go. Not to brag or anything, but the fantastic writer Chelsea Kane actually saw it and liked it. I don't know if she got one or not, but she did mention on Twitter that she liked it and wanted to wear it to Emerald City Comic Con. So, backdoor brag. I'm a big fan of Chelsea Kane, if you couldn't tell. But I wanted to do it. I don't make a lot of money off it. I think I'd get like $1 a shirt that's sold, so it's not like I'm making a ton of money, and I'm honestly thinking about just using any money I make from it to go towards one of the billboards at Times Square, or as it's been called recently, Earp Square. I saw somewhere on Twitter that people were talking about putting up a billboard that's like right outside IDW's offices, so I'm thinking about maybe contributing to that. Maybe I'll donate it to charity. I don't know. But we'll figure it out. But it's definitely not anything I plan to profit off of. It's just one way to spread the word on the Fight for Wynonna, because Wynonna Earp is a great show. I think it's a great story. It's all about female empowerment and all this stuff, and I think that's something that we don't get to see a lot of. And one thing I love about the show is it tells women you can, there's no right way to be you. You're just you, and you rock it. You're the best. Whoever you are, you're the best. And I really want to join in the fight. So if you want to join in the fight too, you can see everything we do. Use the hashtag Fight for Wynonna on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff. I'm not on Facebook, but I'm sure it's on there too. But one thing that really helped me, or through the Earper community, is it helped me find my passion for writing again. It's one thing I did not expect to ever get back. When I first wrote, or when I finished writing my first novel, Crutches, I kind of was burnt out. And I had a lot of people asking me to write again. What was I writing? What would my next book be out? And I didn't really have an answer, mainly because I was so tired of it. I was burnt out, and I was just kind of lost my passion for writing, and I really hated it for a little bit. And I was on a fan fiction kick for a while. Still am. Who the fuck am I kidding? I still am. And I have been reading some Wynonna Earp, like, alternate universe werewolf stuff, and was reading it, and I thought to myself, you know, I want to write a werewolf story, and I did, and that's what the callings come from. And and just out of nowhere, I had these ideas pop up in my head, and, you know, next thing I know, I've written an entire novel, and I'm very proud of it, and I can't wait for other people to read it, because I think it's really well done. I'm excited to share it. I'm excited for it to be released. I'm excited for everyone to see the cover art, because it is fantastic. It's actually the background on my computer, and I know it's just the first draft, but I can't stop looking at it. I love it so much. But so I think, you know, in some weird 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of way, Wynonna Earp helped me find my passion for writing again. And you know, it's things like that and the Earper community that shows how important this fandom is and how wonderful this fandom is. And I mean, that's just my perspective and my story. There's tons of people who have said, you know, Wynonna Earp helped them come out of depression. It helped them find a voice, help them figure out who they are. And I think that's wonderful. And you know, the show needs to be made. The story needs to be finished being told. So IDW, please, please, please find the funding to get this show made. These characters deserve to have their story told. Emily Andras, who's the creator of the show, deserves to tell the story. She deserves to finish the story. And you know, if you put the investment out there, the Earpers will buy it. You know, we love it. So let us help you. So that's all I have to say. So I'm going to go ahead. I hope you guys check out and join the good fight. If you've never heard of Wynonna Earp, you can see seasons 1 and 2 on Netflix right now, and it is great. I highly recommend it. Watch it. So that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time talking about Wynonna, at least not today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the first chapter. So I hope you all enjoy. Oh, and quick disclaimer before I read here. I made it to a point where a character, or I have a character that speaks French, and at the time when I was writing it, it seemed like a really good idea. I don't speak French very well, so I'm going to do my best to try. I've got things written out phonetically, so hopefully I can do it properly. If you're French or you speak French, please don't be offended by my horrible French. I'm trying the best I can. I really am. Yeah. Oh, and if you want to read this, I actually put the first chapter up on Archive of Our Own. You can check it out. I'm going to put a link to that also in the description below. So if you want to read it there. I am going to do my damnedest to get this French right, so I apologize. It's not going to be the best, but here we go. Darcy Collins was in her element today. Today, her mythology class was going to begin the Celtic section. She could spend an entire semester on Celtic mythology alone, but her freshman mythology course had to cover all the basics. Most of the kids knew many of the stories from Greek and Norse mythology, thanks to popular culture. This allowed them to fly through those sections and grant Darcy more time to cover Celtic myths. The students loved her class. She didn't require a textbook, she didn't make them write essays or take tests. All she asked was that her students showed up and listened, which they did. Not because attendance was a majority of their grade, but because Darcy would tell the stories with such enthusiasm and gusto that her students made sure to get to class as early as possible so they could get a good seat and listen to her storytelling. Her class was so popular and filled up so quickly, the university had her teaching several mythology classes every semester. It wasn't really all that surprising. Werewolves were known to have a certain knack for storytelling. She smiled to herself as the large screen in the front of the classroom displayed various pictures of Ireland and Scotland. She had taken the pictures herself over the many years she had lived in the UK. It helped the class get in the spirit and made her feel a bit more at home. Now, she stated, her class prepping for vigorous note-taking, I know you all know about Zeus and Odin, but tell me, how many of you know of the Morrigan? Crickets. She'd expected as much. No one ever did. Suddenly, Darcy noticed a hand in the center of the classroom being raised. Really? The girl, whose name Darcy couldn't remember, looked around to see who had been called on. She realized the question was directed at her. Oh, she said. Well, I think I saw it on a TV show. Darcy raised her eyebrows. Wow, I'll have to check it out. The girl blushed and looked down into her lap. The Morgan, Darcy continued, hitting a button on a small remote she was holding. The screen then turned to a picture of a pale-skinned woman with dark hair and eyes, surrounded by crows. Is known as the Phantom Queen, but she is also one of 3 goddesses. She hit the button again, showing the Morrigan and her 2 sisters. You see, class, the Celts really had a strange fascination with the number 3. Darcy walked back to her office after class, her Oxford shoes making a satisfying click with each step. Both students and professors moved out of her way, occasionally nodding a hello in her direction. If she were at a pack gathering, everyone would quickly drop their eyes in an effort to avoid eye contact with the alpha wolf. Being born an alpha into one of the oldest werewolf families had made power and respect her birthright. In the human world, though, she had had to earn respect, and earned it she had. She'd worked hard and earned impeccable grades while she studied at Oxford University, where she earned both undergraduate and master's degrees in both literature and foreign languages before she returned to Canada in her late 20s, taking a job as a professor at the university. It was a surprise to many that she took a job teaching introduction mythology courses to undergraduates when she could easily teach just about any subject she liked. She could work at any museum, art gallery, or even a vast number of charities and nonprofits. She had just reached her office door when she heard a familiar, timid voice squeak out, "Professor Collins?" Darcy turned around to find herself face to face with the young woman who had raised her hand in class earlier. She cursed herself for not knowing the girl's name, but she had so many students it was hard to keep track of them all. "Yes, Miss..." "Brittany," her student finished. "Brittany Stone." "Miss Stone," Darcy said. "Forgive me, I found by the time I learn all my students' names the semester is over." The girl blushed. "No big, Professor. I just wanted to let you know that I really like your class." Darcy gave her a genuine smile. She always liked hearing that. It's why she enjoyed teaching undergraduates so much. They wanted to learn. "Thank you, Miss Stone. That's always nice to hear." The girl giggled nervously when Darcy had smiled at her. Her eyes trailed up and down Darcy's body as the wolf caught an all-too-familiar scent. Arousal. Shit, Darcy thought. It's never that simple. She felt her hair begin to bristle at the scent. Normally she would focus on something else until it dissipated, but the full moon had just ended and Darcy's wolf was more virile than normal. Not now, she thought as she tried to bury the wolf back down inside her. Want, it growled. Darcy wanted her too, but she had 2 rules about who she, or rather, didn't sleep with. First, no students. It wasn't illegal, but she had seen numerous relationships between students and professors. It never seemed to end well. Her second rule, no humans. She'd made that mistake when she was at university. After that, she had vowed never again. "Is it true?" Darcy had been too busy fighting her wolf, she hadn't realized the girl had been speaking. "Is what true?" "Your tattoos," the girl explained. "Are you really covered in one big Celtic knot, like one of those Japanese gangsters?" "Oh," Darcy said, a bit relieved. "Partially. I have a few tattoos, and some are Celtic knots, but it's not like I'm in the Celtic Yakuza or anything like that." The student laughed, throwing her head back, exposing her throat. "She's submitting," the wolf growled. "Take her." Humans could be so stupid sometimes. "You know," the girl said, taking a step closer to Darcy, "I've been wanting a tattoo myself. Maybe I could see yours and get some ideas." She took another step, this time into the werewolf's personal space. She lifted her hand to touch the lapel of Darcy's blazer. The scent of arousal was growing stronger. Darcy's wolf was already on edge. If the girl touched her, she might not be able to control herself. Warren Zevon started singing. Brittany jumped, her hand covering her chest in an attempt to catch her heart. "Sorry," Darcy told the girl, pulling her cell phone out of her pocket. "I've got to take this." She rushed into her office and locked the door behind her, just in case, before leaning her back against the door. "You have amazing timing," she said into the phone. "Yeah, like timing had anything to do with it," her sister snorted. "Since when do you have trouble fighting off your admirers?" She had felt Darcy struggle with her wolf through their bond. Twins, even human twins, were known to share a connection. Werewolf twins, rare as they were known to have a bond that was eerily similar to a mate bond. They could often feel what their sibling was feeling. Some could even communicate through it. Darcy had opened up her side of the bond in hopes that her sister would give her an out. And thank God she had. "You know how humans are," Darcy explained, unknowingly offering themselves up on a silver platter. "Uh-huh," her sister replied, unconvinced. "Big bad alpha can't fight off a little fresh meat?" Darcy was embarrassed. She had much better control over her wolf than most, even with humans constantly and unknowingly submitting themselves. She could normally keep herself in check, even if the effects of the full moon were still lingering. It had been a pretty strong moon this month. Normally she just needed to go out for an extra run in her wolf form to get out all the excess energy, but this time she needed more. She needed to have sex. "We've got that calling party tonight," her sister reminded her. "Christ," Darcy growled. "I forgot about that." "Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it either. Do you want to meet up at the club?" "Caradwyn," Darcy warned. She only used her sister's full name if she was serious. "Calm down," Caradwyn said. "I'll wait for you in the parking lot." "Good," Darcy said, sighing with relief. The last thing she needed was for her sister to be alone and unprotected in a vampire nightclub. Caradwyn and Darcy stood in what seemed like an endless line to get into dusk. The line inched forward slowly as the doorman turned away any humans and anyone who wasn't on the guest list. Anyone who didn't know the two women would never know they were twins, let alone sisters. Darcy was very dark and brooding, while Caradwyn was bright and beaming. Darcy stood stiffly, her arms crossed over her chest, while she kept a careful eye on everyone around them. She'd come straight from the university, so she was still wearing her three-piece suit and Oxford shoes. Her pixie cut had been flattened by her motorcycle helmet. Carrie kept trying to run her fingers through it, trying to fluff it up, while Darcy kept smacking her hand away. Though both women were the same height, Darcy seemed to tower over her sister, thanks to her position as an alpha. Caradwyn stood next to her sister, dodging the occasional slap at her hands as she tried to fix Darcy's hair. She wore a bright-colored sundress with a sweater tied around her shoulders. Her long, honey-brown hair hung in waves down to the middle of her back. "Celtic Yakuza," Caradwyn laughed after Darcy explained what had happened with her student earlier. "That's a new one. Maybe not the most creative, but new. I still think my favorite is the one about you being a vampire." "Never mind, I was just the new professor and they were trying to see if they could break me by giving me all the night classes." Darcy rolled her eyes. "My favorite's the one about me being hired as a spy for MI6, but then I got fired because I refused to have my tattoos lasered off." "Now that's creative." They laughed just as they reached the doorman. "Name?" he asked, not bothering to look up from the list. "Collins," Darcy answered. "Party of 2, Caradwyn added. He moved aside so they could enter. Darcy didn't like nightclubs. They were too loud and too crowded. Dusk, as it was owned and run by vampires, normally accommodated for things like this, but the guest of honor must have requested the music be turned up louder than necessary. Darcy hated everything about this. "Stupid, bloody werewolf politics," she thought to herself as she scanned the old warehouse. She was quick to learn that she and Caradwyn were twice the age of anyone in the club, but being as they were considered the new generation, they had to attend all the moon calling parties. The moon calling parties, or calling party as it was sometimes referred, were a rite of passage amongst werewolves. Unlike vampires, werewolves were born, not made. Most didn't turn until around puberty between the ages of 13 and 16. Though there were some rare cases where some as young as 8 or as old as 18 first turned. After the first transformation, the new wolf was celebrated with a sort of coming-of-age party. Catholics were confirmed, Jewish kids had a bar mitzvah, werewolves were moon-called. "At least make an appearance and congratulate young Grayson," their father Alistair had said when he told them about the party. "I'd rather put a cigarette out on my ass," Darcy replied curtly. "I know it's not ideal," he continued, "but that's the way things are done. It's always been this way. That's the problem. If you don't like it, then become the leader and change it." His old argument rung in Darcy's ears. Darcy, being the firstborn and the alpha of the two girls, was the heir of the Collins pack. Their father, the current pack leader, was looking to step down and retire within the next decade, while trying to groom his eldest to take his place. But Darcy didn't want to be the pack leader. She hated the politics of werewolf culture, and she certainly didn't want to be the one enforcing such archaic laws. She didn't even care that much for the pack. It was far too large for her liking. There were a few members she knew well and trusted, but there were several more that she barely knew and wouldn't even trust to hold the door open for her. "We'd better pay our respects to Grayson," Caradwyn said. "I refuse to kiss that little punk's ring," Darcy replied. "The sooner we do, the sooner we can leave." Darcy sighed. Her sister was right. She found the VIP table where Grayson was sitting with a long line, much longer than the one to get inside the club, was formed near it. She growled in irritation. "I'll get us a space in line," Caradwyn said, feeling Darcy's frustration. "Why don't you get us some drinks?" Darcy gave a quick nod and went straight for the bar. One upside to these things was that the parents normally sprang for an open bar for the older wolves who had been dragged to them. Luckily, there was only a handful of guests who were of drinking age, so the line at the bar was non-existent. She ordered a beer for herself and a white wine spritzer for her sister. The bartender turned to prepare their drinks when Darcy felt a hand slide on her forearm. She tensed under the stranger's touch. She didn't care to be snuck up on. Darcy's eyes followed the hand to the attached arm and found it belonged to an old schoolmate, Dominique, smiling at her. "I was hoping I'd see you tonight," she purred in Darcy's ear. "You were," Darcy replied, lifting an eyebrow. Dominique nodded. "If I have to be at this stupid party for the golden boy, I might as well have something pretty to look at." Dominique was Grayson's older sister. She and Darcy were sophomores when Grayson was born. Once the pals had their own little heir, Dominique went from being her parents' perfect princess to a live-in nanny. Darcy would have felt sorry for her if she hadn't spent all of junior high calling her a dyke. And now she was hanging on Darcy's arm, openly flirting with the said dyke. "Want." Darcy's wolf was back. Another night, Darcy would have told Dominique to go to hell in the most colorful way she could fathom. But tonight she had a few ideas. She never much cared for the Powells. Between Dominique's attempt at being the 90s version of Heather Chandler and Grayson's blatant disregard for pack status, the whole family was far too pretentious. They all looked down at Cara Dwin because she was an Omega and treated her like dirt. Plus, there was Grayson's constant bragging about how he was going to become the pack leader one day. Oh, how Darcy wished he would try. Even though she was considered the heir to the Collins pack, werewolf politics allowed anyone within the pack to challenge. Well, she didn't want to be the pack leader. She wasn't going to hand the title over to just anyone. They would have to earn it. And none of the Powells had ever earned a damn thing. Dominique's hand moved from her forearm to her hand, her thumb brushing back and forth across Darcy's knuckles. "What do you say we find a nice, quiet corner? We have some catching up to do." Darcy caught the all-too-familiar scent of lust coming off of her and gave her a wolfish grin. Oh, the boxes she could tick. She glanced around the club looking for a utility closet where she could take out her carnal desires on the old prom queen. She may have been a bitch, but she was attractive. Then get to deliver a blow to Grayson on his special day. She tried to imagine the look on his face when she shook his hand and pulling him close, whispering in the little shit's ear something about how much her sister enjoyed herself. Darcy chuckled at the thought. The bartender brought the drinks she ordered. She turned to tell Dominique that she would just give her sister her drink and then be right back when she froze. Cara Dwin was standing in line, talking to a blonde woman. The blonde had her back turned to Darcy, but she knew exactly who it was. Simone Bardot, the club owner and an incredibly powerful vampire. "Excuse me," Darcy said, and hurried through the crowd to reach her sister. If it were anyone else, she wouldn't have worried. Werewolves could only be glamored by vampires if they were willing. Cara Dwin may say she wasn't, but she found vampires to be fascinating, and her desire for knowledge on them made her vulnerable. Darcy couldn't hear what they were saying over the pulsating music, but she could see Simone's hand making its way to touch her sister's cheek. "Carrie!" Darcy shouted, causing both her sister and the vampire to jump in surprise. "Your drink." "Darcy!" Carrie said, mimicking her sister. "Thank you." She took the glass from Darcy and took a sip. "This is Simone Bardot," Darcy finished, nodding in the vampire's direction. "We've met before." "You have?" "Of course," Simone said with a sly grin. "I was hoping to see you tonight. I need your expertise." "You do?" Carrie asked, her eyes darting back and forth between the two of them. "Yes," Simone continued, her gaze fixed on Darcy. "I recently acquired a fine piece of artwork, but I worry it may be a copy. I'd be happy to take a look at it when you have the time. It is in my office now, if you do not mind." Darcy looked at her sister. "Go ahead," Carrie assured her. "We're going to be waiting for a while." "I shouldn't be too long," Darcy told her, and began to follow Simone to her office. Though she didn't have to follow, she already knew the way. Simone opened her office door, allowing Darcy to enter first. Once she locked the door behind herself and turned to face Darcy, she was instantly pinned back against the door. Darcy's teeth were now fangs, her fingers were now claws, and her eyes were glowing. One clawed hand was around the vampire's throat, lifting her off the ground. "I told you," Darcy growled through clenched teeth. "My sister is off limits." The vampire gave her a throaty laugh, her blonde hair falling into her eyes. It made Darcy furious and tightened her grip around the vamp's throat. "Calm down, Louve," Simone's native French tongue making its appearance. "I only wanted to distract you from that bitchin' heat." "The what?" Simone pointed a long, ruby-red nail over Darcy's shoulder. She looked in the direction where the vampire was pointing, keeping a tight grip on her throat. She wasn't choking her. Vampires didn't need to breathe, only inflicting a bit of pain, even though the vampire enjoyed every second of it. Darcy saw several monitors on the wall where Simone was pointing, each one at various angles where security cameras were feeding footage from the club. The center and largest monitor was focused on a very confused and disappointed Dominique Powell. Darcy felt her wolfish grin spread across her face. Simone Bardot, I never thought you for the jealous type. Connery, the vamp spat, then traced a pointed nail along the vein in Darcy's throat. I just hate to see such a fine wine wasted on the palate of a sorority girl. She then pulled Darcy by the back of the neck, crashing their lips together into a biting kiss. Darcy moaned at the initial contact. She had needed this. Simone's kiss was wild, feral, and cold. Darcy never could get used to the cold. She pulled back, sucking in a frustrated breath through her teeth. Simone gave her a knowing smile as she moved her hands to unbutton Darcy's blazer. You know how to fix that, Louve, she said, her fangs gleaming. Darcy loosened her grip around the vampire's throat, allowing her to stand on her own 2 feet. Her cold hands brushing Darcy's skin as she pushed the blazer off her shoulders. The werewolf pulled the garment off and tossed it aside. Get it from the shoulder, Darcy said, not wanting to explain the fang marks on her neck. Simone's smile widened as she caressed the werewolf's warm skin. She opened her mouth to prepare for a bite when Darcy snatched her by the hair, pulling her head back. It had happened so quickly it caused the vampire to gasp in surprise. Darcy's lips brushed her ear as she growled, Watch my tattoo. The vampire nodded, and the werewolf released her grip. Fumez-vous après? Simone asked as Darcy picked her blazer up off the floor, dusting it off before shrugging it back on. She asked that every time. I don't smoke at all. Darcy gave the same answer she always did. She wondered if Simone always asked because she thought it was charming, or if something about Darcy's blood made her forget. The vampire had once told her that werewolf blood to a vampire was like absinthe to a human. The good kind of absinthe that made you hallucinate, not the knockoff shit that liquor stores passed on unsuspecting humans. Simone had drunk her fair share of the proper absinthe when she was human. Good for you, Simone agreed, lighting a cigarette and taking a long drag. It is a terrible habit, impossible to break. Even in death, Darcy laughed to herself as she checked her watch and then cursed under her breath. Carrie checked her watch inside. It had been a half hour since Darcy went to the vampire's office. She wasn't sure how long it would take to identify if a painting was real or if it was a copy. But she was sure that it wouldn't take this long. Not for Darcy, at least. The line had only moved forward twice since Darcy had left, and she was beginning to wonder if they were ever going to make it out of the club. Kieran heard Grayson and his buddies bellowing in the middle of the dance floor. Someone opened their shirts in an attempt to show off to the girls. She couldn't help but roll her eyes. The song ended and the boys went back to the VIP table. The line inched forward again. Please don't tell me you let other people cut in front of you, Darcy said, reappearing by her side. Carrie shook her head. No, apparently his royal obnoxious was exhausted and needed to take a dance break. It is tiring having everyone kiss your ass. Did we behave like this at our calling party? We were 8, Darcy said. Mum arranged a fancy Victorian tea party for you, and Da took me to the Calgary Stampede for cowboy lessons. Carrie smiled at the memory. Fastest hands on this side of the Mississippi. Can snatch a gal's bra right off before she ever knew it was gone, Darcy said, giving her best cowgirl voice. Didn't need that detail, Carrie said, only half joking. Oh, fuck this, Darcy said, grabbing her sister's wrist. We're too old for this shit. She pulled Carriagewin as they bypassed the line, heading for the table. Hey, no cuts, one of the younger wolves called. Darcy stopped dead in her tracks and turned to snarl at the kid, who quickly realized his mistake. He dropped his eyes to the floor and mumbled an apology. Darcy continued to pull her sister to the table. Grayson, Darcy said flatly. The teenager looked up and gave the women a cocky smile. The Collins girls, he said, leaning back and lacing his fingers behind his head. I was afraid you wouldn't show up. There are so many people here, Carrie replied before Darcy got the chance to. I'm not sure everyone is going to get a chance to talk to you tonight. Luckily, I have the place booked until dawn. Bully for you, Darcy mumbled. What? Grayson asked. He couldn't catch what she had said over the music. I said, congrats on your calling, Darcy lied. Oh, Grayson said. Thanks. Didn't even hurt. Both Carrie and Darcy knew that was a lie. Their parents had been preparing for the pack's monthly run. The entire pack, sans Darcy and Carrie, had been at the estate when the moonlight hit Grayson and he immediately started crying for his mother. Darcy's herself had been excruciating. She felt every type of pain imaginable. Her skin felt like it was being ripped from the inside out, while her body felt like it was on fire. She felt every bone crack as it shifted from a human skeleton to that of a wolf's. Each strand of fur that pushed out of her skin felt like needles. At one point she was in such agony she begged her parents to knock her out. Darcy had only heard of one wolf that hadn't experienced any pain during their first transformation, and she was standing right next to her. Caradwyn had told Darcy later on that one minute she was in her human form, the next she was in her wolf form. She couldn't explain why her transformation was so quick and painless. She just saw her sister suffering and tried to share her pain, but it never came. Impressive, Carrie said, even though she wasn't even in the slightest bit. Well, Darcy said, good night. She pulled Carrie away from the table and headed for the exit before Grayson could say anything else. They'd almost made it to the door before Dominique appeared in front of Darcy. Leaving so soon, she pouted. Carrie could smell her desire for her sister. It wasn't an uncommon occurrence. Darcy had that effect on a lot of werewolves. Her alpha status even made humans and fae willing to submit to her, especially around a full moon. Darcy started, trying to think of an excuse. She looked over her shoulder and noticed Grayson glaring at her. Carrie watched as Darcy's wolfish grin, as she'd coined it, appeared. She turned back to Dominique, cupped the woman's cheek with her free hand and pulled her close, whispering something in her ear. Carrie couldn't hear over the music, but it must have been quite something because she noticed Dominique's eyes rolling back in her head and telling Darcy breathlessly, I'd like that. Darcy gave the girl a wink and pulled her sister out the door. What did you say to her? Carrie asked once they were in the parking lot. I told her I was just flirting with her to make her brother mad. The hell you did. There's no way a woman was that excited to be told she's being used. Sounds better in French, Darcy explained with a smile. How? J'ai flirté pour le rendre fou, Darcy replied with a smirk. You're right. It sounds much better in French, Carrie agreed. So how long have you been dating the vampire? Darcy laughed. Well, I'll be sure to let you know when that happens. Do you think I'm stupid, Darcy? I know you're not stupid, Darcy told her. I'm not dating Simone. So what's happening with you two? Because I know you weren't examining a painting. What makes you think I wasn't? I need your expertise. Carrie tried her best to imitate the French vampire. Come on, Darcy, even I saw through that one. We're not dating, Darcy reiterated. So what are you doing? Darcy sighed. She never could lie to her sister. It's just sex. She braced herself for Carrie's reaction. She didn't know what it would be. Screaming, hitting, cursing, maybe all of the above. She looked at her sister only to find her staring at her, her mouth agape. No way! Carrie finally said. Why didn't you tell me? Well, it's not something you plan on sharing with your family, is it? Darcy explained. Hey, how was work? Could you pick up milk on the way home? Oh, by the way, I'm fucking a vampire. Not exactly what I would call casual conversation. Caradwyn continued to stare at her sister. Darcy knew she was waiting for details. We are not discussing this, she said flatly. Come on, Carrie said. You don't want me studying vampires because it's too dangerous, but you're dating one in secret? We're not dating. Carrie held up her hands. Fine, fucking whatever. Please don't say that. You did. It doesn't matter who did, because we are not talking about this. Darcy moved toward the direction of her motorcycle. Would you rather talk with Da about it? Carrie asked, causing Darcy to stop and turn around. What are you, 6? She asked. You going to tell Da on me if I don't share the details of my sexual escapades with a vampire? I don't want to play-by-play, Carrie said, cringing at the thought, but you can give me some insight into the vampire world. Darcy sighed. Fine, but let's find a diner or someplace to eat. I need a burger. Do you need protein? Carrie asked, already excited. Are you low on blood? Food first. So, Carrie said as she sat across from Darcy at a local diner. She'd ordered a salad while Darcy had ordered an extremely rare burger the size of her head. As soon as the waiter was out of earshot, she had pulled a pen and small notebook out of her purse, waiting for Darcy to share. So, Darcy replied, you are not getting out of this, Darcy Collins. How did you two meet? We met at the art museum not long after I came back from university. You've been sleeping with a vamp for 5 years? Carrie asked in a hushed voice. Oh, grow up. Neither of us ever sleeps when we're together. Darcy. Fine, Darcy continued. I just got back from Oxford and was invited to the museum for some fancy gala that had a bunch of Monets on display. Uh-huh, Carrie scribbled at her notepad. I was looking at some of the paintings, and I hear this woman talking to some of the other guests about Monet. She's speaking in French, and from the way she's talking, it sounds like she knew him personally. So I struck up a conversation with her, One thing leads to another, and the next thing I know, we're ducking into a broom closet. Did she glamour you? No, she tried, but she couldn't. Did she bite you? Drink your blood? It's the only way I can. With a vampire. Carrie stopped writing and gave her sister a curious look. I don't understand. They're cold vampires, like a corpse. Blood warms them and makes them feel normal. Fascinating, Carrie said, resuming her note-taking. Does it happen instantly? I guess, Darcy said with a shrug. She'd never seen Simone feeding on anyone else. I think werewolf blood makes them warmer faster than human blood. I've been told it makes them feel things again. So what's in it for you? Well, that should be obvious. Not really, Carrie said. She gets blood from a powerful werewolf and the euphoric effects that come with it. You have to get something out of it, too. Darcy just raised her eyebrows. Really? Just sex? Well, Darcy explained, it is fantastic sex. Plus, I don't have to hold back. Okay, Carrie said, closing her notepad as the waiter brought them their food. Once he left, she opened it back up. So, she continued, just as Darcy took a huge bite of her food, what does it feel like? All right, everyone, that was chapter 1 of my new book, The Calling. If you want more of it, the ebook is available for pre-order on Amazon. It will be fully released May 1st. If you'd like a paperback copy, that will be available after May 1st. I will probably come back here once I get and show you guys the cover art and talk about how much I love it whenever I get the final copy of that. Also, if you're interested in the Fight for Wynonna shirt that I designed, there's a link to that in the description below. You can also find the first chapter to read yourself at Archive of Our Own, and again, link to that is down below. I hope you all enjoyed that first chapter. I apologize for my horrendous French. I know it wasn't great. Yeah, the outtakes of that, I must have said those words 3,000 times to make sure I said them right, and I'm still not sure they're right. So I hope you all enjoyed. So if you did like this, be sure to chomp down on the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to this channel to see other videos that I've done. I will see you all for the next one.